Welcome to another wonderful episode of Cuda Education. I'm your host, Nicholas Main. Today, what I wanted to talk about was my experience um, creating a host machine with Ubuntu 18.04 LTS um, for the Jetson Xavier. I'll repeat. So, the Jetson Xavier requires a host machine in order for it in order for you to interface with it and to flash it and to create put all the programs and everything that it needs on it. Okay, so the host machine has to run. In my case, I chose Ubuntu 18.04 LTS in order to run it, as the host machine to interface with the Jetson Xavier. Okay, so I initially tried to make a host machine out of a Windows laptop computer, and the Windows laptop computer had NVIDIA GPU, a GeForce 1050 Ti to be exact. Okay, so my first attempt was okay. It needs Ubuntu in order to get everything done with the Jetson. So let me do an Oracle VirtualBox VM of Ubuntu. So you install Oracle VirtualBox, and then you you create an instance of Ubuntu 18.04 LTS on it, and then you try to run the Jetpack and do everything that you need to do on the Jetson Xavier through this virtual machine running running in Oracle VirtualBox, and this is of course all running in Windows, right? So I have my Windows operating system, I have Oracle VirtualBox installed and running, and then I have as a VM an instance of Ubuntu 18.04 LTS. Okay. Long story short, I was able to actually get everything running, but I still got errors and created problems later down the road. So eventually, I said, okay, the VM is not going to work. Okay, so remember now, this is a Windows computer with an NVIDIA GPU on it, a GeForce 1050 Ti graphics card. Okay, so my next order of business was all right. So clearly the VM isn't working. Let's try and I'm gonna partition my computer and have Ubuntu 18.04 LTS running natively. So I create a partition on my drive. I format the partition, right? I format the partition, and then I install Ubuntu. That in and of itself was a task. Sometimes I could install it. Sometimes it would crash after you install it. It would crash while trying to install it. It would crash in the menu system when you're setting it up to install. All these issues. I eventually, you know, on maybe two occasions, was able to get a stable version of Ubuntu running natively on my computer that has an NVIDIA GPU on it. Okay, and it ran for a while and things were good, but eventually I started to run into other problems. For example, I I um I couldn't like sometimes I couldn't open the settings menu in Ubuntu, right? So, the operating system would boot up, it would be fine, but I can't open the settings. Every time I try to open the settings, it crashes, right? Also, when I was installing Ubuntu, right, I would always get these, hardware error. There's a hardware error, right? So, um, and what the hardware error was basically it was the NVIDIA GPU that was causing the problem. And if you go to CudaEducation.com, there is a post about how to get around the NVIDIA hardware error, right? And it's you go into the grub interface and you type in a special command, and you're supposed to get around it, right? And the first time it happened to me, remember, I've been installing and reinstalling Ubuntu on several occasions. So the first time the hardware error happened to me, I um, I got around it and I was able to run Ubuntu. Problem is, Ubuntu, when it ran, it was exceptionally slow, right? Slower than normal, slower than other times that I installed it and I didn't get the hardware error for whatever reason, and it just ran, right? But then there were other issues. The Ubuntu instance would not recognize the HDMI port. Okay, so I have an external monitor that I run on, that I hook up the computer to try and get some images going on it. Try and get a display so I have more space to do multitask and do all the things I need to do with the Jetson Xavier, etc., etc. Doesn't recognize the HDMI port, so that was another issue. So then, of course, I said, okay, let me reinstall it. So I reinstalled it again, Ubuntu, and here comes the hardware error again, and this, that, and the other. And then, of course, somewhere down the line, this whole settings thing where you can't get into settings without it hanging up. On some occasions, I was able to look online, and I had initially posted a thing on how to get around the whole settings thing not working properly on Ubuntu, and you go into this and you do that and you do this command, and it would work for a while. But eventually I got fed up. So luckily I had another computer. I got fed up with of course Ubuntu on a VM. I got fed up with Ubuntu running on a computer that had the NVIDIA graphics card, and that would issue these hardware errors when I was trying to install it and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, so even though I have a workaround, and the workaround sometimes works and sometimes doesn't work, and I'm able to install and stuff, obviously something's going on, and it's just not working fully as you'd want it to. If it's not one thing, it's another thing. And of course, the more workarounds you do and the more things you tinker with and you install and do this and do that, it is the more precarious your whole system becomes, because it's only a matter of time before something else snaps out of place and stuff. For the most part, when I would get Ubuntu running properly, I didn't really have any issues. Now, when I'm talking when I had Ubuntu running natively on the formatted partition, right? When I had it running natively on the computer, I didn't really have any problems necessarily with the Jetpack or with the Jetson Xavier. So all of that stuff was, for the most part, ran smoothly. It was just that my system was unstable. I couldn't get into settings. It was slow. Eventually, my HDMI port couldn't sync up with I couldn't, display my stuff on an external monitor. So completely frustrated. This is over the course of, several weeks. Okay. So luckily, I had another computer that does not have a NVIDIA GPU on it, and luckily, I was able to create a partition on that computer, format the partition, or is it a partition? Yeah, I guess you call it a partition, right? It's just basically you shrink your main Windows or C or operating system volume, and then you have a space of unallocated space, and then you you install Ubuntu on that unallocated space, and it just kind of it works, right? So I tried to run Ubuntu 18.04 LTS on a computer that doesn't have an NVIDIA GPU on it. And lo and behold, for the most part, it ran smoothly. Everything that was supposed to happen happened. I didn't get any hardware errors. I didn't get any major issues with the installation process. The the operating system runs fast. Now, mind you, on this computer, it's a faster processor. I do have more space on this on this computer, so I have about, I allocated 100 GB to the partition, whereas on the on the computer with the NVIDIA GPU, it's about 50 GB I was running on. But even with the 50 GB, it really shouldn't be that slow. So I don't think memory should have been an issue. But anyway, on the computer without an NVIDIA GPU, everything ran smoothly. I was able to install Jetpack. I was able to get Nsight up and running with minimal effort. No launch errors, no anything like that. I was able to get Nsight graphics up and running. I was able to start and restart my computer. Oh, that was the other thing too. Like on the other old computer, the one with the NVIDIA GPU, I wasn't able to shut down or restart reliably. Like every time I would need to shut down or restart, I pretty much had to hold the power button, right? So all of these issues I was having with the old system, with the new system, it was like a walk in the park, literally. So the reason for me creating this YouTube video and just talking about it is to just say that I highly recommend that if you're going to use a host machine to run Ubuntu 18.04 LTS, that you use a host machine that does not have an NVIDIA GPU on it. It just creates a lot of problems. I don't know what that hardware error does or what it's doing or what kinds of things it's causing, but I just find that it's apparently there is some driver thing that's going on or something that Ubuntu just doesn't like the NVIDIA GPU. So I've since installed it up on the computer without an NVIDIA GPU, and it runs fine. And because the primary purpose of me running Ubuntu is to be a host machine for the Jetson Xavier, I am not going to I'm trying my best not to put a bunch of stuff on it, right? Just kind of have it clean, do one or two things and just keep on rolling, because I just can't afford to have any hiccups or anything. There are other things I want to tackle and learn and apply and stuff. So just like I'm doing it, I suggest you do it that way too. I also suggest that on the Jetson Xavier, you don't you try not to put a bunch of unnecessary stuff on it. Like, don't try and install a video editor or just random pieces of software on the Jetson. Okay, just do only what it is you need for it to do on the Jetson. And also for your partition on the host machine, your Ubuntu partition on the host machine. So I've invested several weeks in this issue. This is something I kind of know fairly well, and I'm pretty, almost an expert level, the amount of time I've spent on this issue. So yeah. I would use my computer with the NVIDIA GPU. I would use that for my Visual Studio Cuda Toolkit 10 related stuff. So when I'm just doing pure Cuda code and doing tutorials on that, I would use the Windows based computer with the NVIDIA GPU. But as far as Ubuntu and NVIDIA GPU, they don't go well together. on a host machine. So I mean, obviously on the Jetson is running in NVIDIA GPUs, but for the host machine, it's a whole another kettle of fish. So anyway, guys, that's my take on the issue. Please comment on the links below. Comment with the links below. Let me hear your story. Let me hear your experience. Um, Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Okay. Also, go to CudaEducation.com. You could hang out. I have a whole bunch of posts about Cuda, about Jetson, about TensorFlow, about artificial intelligence, high performance computing, various errors and issues I've had with Ubuntu for those that, want to take the difficult route. And I've just kind of recorded all of my experiences just so that someone else doesn't have to go through the pain of it. And also, please consider donating. I appreciate all the donations I've gotten so far. This stuff takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of aggravation, and just pain and sorrow to figure this stuff out on many different levels. So I really appreciate the donations I've gotten so far, and I hope that you guys continue to donate. Maybe in the near future, I'll start setting up some kind of memorabilia, maybe some hats, maybe some shirts, all that good stuff. Also, if you're interested in any kind of teaching engagements, any kind of consulting engagements, whether it is you yourself or you have a classroom of people or an organization or a company or however you want to do it, definitely reach out to me at cudaeducation@gmail.com. That's cudaeducation@gmail.com. And we can work something out and get you up to speed on the things that I know and what it is your organization needs to take the next step. It's way more efficient than trying to figure this stuff on your own, believe me. Couple priorities nowadays is DeepStream SDK, still TensorFlow, Cuda, and that's pretty much it. I'm slicing myself up in 3 different directions already. So DeepStream, Cuda, and TensorFlow, right? So I have a whole lot of videos on the YouTube channel, a whole lot of content on CudaEducation.com. Also, just as a disclaimer, this information, instructions, any kind of code on my site is for educational purposes only. Please don't use it in a production or commercial environment. Cuda Education or Nicholas Main will not be responsible for any loss or liabilities resulting from your use of information, code, knowledge, opinions that I share, anything like that. I'm simply here to share what I know and share my experiences, and hopefully I could help other people to get a better perspective, get better context on what's really going on, and of course, share some feedback. I recently had someone on the OpenCV CUDA module video wrote a comment and shared that their experience with trying to make it all work. So I have like an hour-long video on that topic, and they shared their very long comment, but a very good comment about their experience with doing it. So we're all here to help each other and to figure this stuff out. You guys know already, the companies that they're good with technology, but they're not necessarily good with documentation. So we're kind of left to our own devices, and we have to figure this stuff out ourselves. So visit the website, subscribe to the YouTube channel, donate, comment, all that good stuff. All right, that's about it. Have a great day.